Hey there, Collaborati family, and welcome back to the show, the place where we're trying to find the people and the knowledge and the content to share to help people take more control of their lives and just hopefully help people feel more fulfilled at the end of the day when they lay their head down and go to sleep. Today, we're talking with Dean Ajay Vinze from Mizzou. He is the Dean of the Trulaske College of Business, and we're going to talk about some innovative new ways that the University of Missouri system, and Mizzou in particular, is helping some of their students find new ways to get into those careers that really match who they are as a person. So, Dean, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Before we get into kind of some of the innovative things that the school is doing, I want to talk a little bit about just some of your backstory, kind of your rise to becoming a dean of, in my opinion, one of the greatest schools in the country.
Well, I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. I certainly think we are amongst the leading business schools nationally. But thank you for having me. And just to give you a little background on where I'm coming from. I'm originally from India, but interestingly grew up in the Philippines and have had a sort of mixed bag of experiences the world over, which brought me to the United States. I've been here. U.S. citizen, first generation immigrant, and I have been in this country for 38 years. I think so. Owe this country a lot, and just thrilled to be able to give back through education and through our business school. So, a little bit on myself, if you like. A family, two kids. Both of them are graduated, and jokingly, I would say off my payroll. But both doing well. My daughter works for a consulting company, and my son is an optical engineer. So they are at two ends of the country, and we are in the middle of the middle. So we're delighted to be here. In terms of my journey over to Trulaske or to the Mizzou family over here, it's sort of come in a nice circuitous way. So I've been through, I jokingly say, I've been through a very interesting professional journey that has me going as dog, cat, in that succession, and now I'm a cat. So I started off at the University of Connecticut as a husky over there. Subsequently, I did my doctoral work at the University of Arizona in Tucson, which was the Wildcats. Was at Texas A&M on their faculty for 10 years. And while Texas A&M doesn't have a mascot per se, but Reveille, the dog, is their mascot effectively. Then I guess I got a 20-year hiatus in the middle where I was neither dog or cat. I was a Sun Devil, which was at Arizona State University. And now, of course, delighted to be here at Mizzou. So it's been an interesting journey. And from my perspective, from a professional perspective, I'm a researcher at heart. I'm a faculty member first and foremost, who has taken on administrative roles over a period of time. And these administrative roles are both privileges and an honor to be in. And I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to be here at Mizzou.
Absolutely. And would you say most of your roles over that timeline, were you kind of always working your way up through higher ed administration, or what did some of those look like?
Great question. Sometimes end up in places that you don't always think you're going to start off and end up in. So I started my career, I worked in industry, so I've been a consultant. My background is technology, and my doctoral work is actually in applied computer science kind of. So it's really looking at how technology impacts higher education. That's sort of where I'm coming from. But in terms of how this journey into administrative, this was not a pre-planned journey into administrative. So, like I said, I'm a researcher by at heart, researcher by profession. So the first 10 years at Texas A&M, that's exactly what I did. I was a research faculty member at the May School of Business at A&M. And I've done my research sort of typically flows between very technical and very organizational relevant, and we can certainly talk about that some if that would be of interest to your listeners. But as I moved from Texas A&M to ASU, where I spent about 18 years of my career, increasingly, I think in the last 8 to 10 years of my time at ASU, was slowly exposed to and then asked to take on increasingly more administrative roles. Things like running the executive MBA program. Then I was the associate dean for international programs and partnerships at the business school, and then I did that for ASU as a whole. Increasing administrative roles, sometimes by luck, sometimes by happenstance, sometimes just because your boss told you to, or you were so enthusiastic about. So I'll give you an example. I was always very enthusiastic about global issues and technology and global issues. So I used to, as any faculty member, make my voice heard to administration on why it's important for educational institutions to be truly global. And lo and behold, the next thing I know, the dean says, you're it, show us what you can do and get us a global footprint. And so it's interesting how you end up in these roles and positions. But the move to Mizzou was an interesting one, and I'm happy to share that story with you. But it wasn't, again, one that I set out to be dean of a business school. That's not how it happened. I think these are opportunities that come to you, and I think sometimes you grab them by both ends and say, this is something I can make a difference in, something that would somewhere that I can contribute in some meaningful way, and you jump on it. And Mizzou happened to be, a wonderful opportunity that I came across in 2016. I joined here in January 2nd of 2017 is when I got here. But this was on the heels of the events that happened here in 2015. And as we all know, those were troubling times. Those were difficult times for Mizzou and for all of us. And really the question was, why Mizzou, why now, kind of thing. And the answer was, where else would I find a storied institution like Mizzou, over 160 plus years of tradition and history, and an outstanding institution known for its research, for its AAU presence, a tremendous academic footprint, if you will, that was going through some troubled times and had seen some significant leadership change. And the way, one of the things I study as a researcher is disruptive innovations. And one of the things they say is when you have disruptions, that's the time change happens, and that's the time you make major changes. So this was one of those situations where you look at Mizzou and you say, here's this wonderfully storied institution going through a big leadership change. And if I recall correctly, there were 9 or 10 new deans here on campus. We had a new president, we had a new chancellor. And what a wonderful opportunity to then participate with this kind of a leadership change, to sort of chart the course, if you will, collectively, for what an institution like Mizzou is and should be known for. So it was this wonderful opportunity. So business schools typically, stand out or are part of this larger academic environment. And so my thought was, through the business school, I'll be able to have some level of contribution I could make to Mizzou and to higher education more broadly because of what Mizzou is and who Mizzou is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible to hear kind of how that whole process went. And as a student during my first semester was fall of 2015, so I was right there during all of it. And I can attest to saying that the amount of innovations that have come out of the other side of that, of people working together and to improve the campus as a whole, has been phenomenal to see. And when I left my college career last fall, I wasn't sure when it would hit me, but it definitely in the past few months, it has hit me like, oh man, that'll always be my home, but it's weird not walking there every day and seeing.
You don't get away that far from us, Corey. You need to come back. You'll always be one of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one thing I heard a lot about in that story was you were talking about not necessarily so much about what the position itself meant to you, but more the impact you can make on the community and on the students. And you're just driven to serve and to really help make things better. And that kind of leads me into wanting to talk a little bit about what are some of the innovations that you and your team, and maybe other deans as well, are
Sure.
working on at Mizzou with this kind of allowing students to build their own degrees, and what other types of projects?
Sure, sure. No, and this is, as you may guess, something very near and dear to my heart. So you ask a very important and interesting question, both. So let me maybe preface my comments just a little bit, and then we'll get to the innovations over here. So one of the things that you notice in higher education in general is higher education is going through a lot of change, and a good part of the change comes in through technology, but other things happen just because of demographics and how those change. And so you need to pay attention to both of them. So let me talk to you a little bit about, you mentioned the new degree that we have spawned. That is certainly an innovation we are very proud of, but that is an innovation that would not happen if there wasn't collaboration across all colleges here at Mizzou. And that goes back to my story of how I came here and how there were so many new deans on the Mizzou campus when I got here. I've been here just a little over 3.5 years, and I'm one of the, I guess, older deans who've been in this role for a little while. But what I consider is those dean colleagues are friends of mine. These are people who we co-create a lot of things. So, this level of collaboration allows you to be innovative. So a thing that we had been looking at, when you talk about technology and demographics, something that I've been studying for some time is the notion of how higher education is overly prepackaged, if you will. Okay, the notion is thou shalt take these set of courses, and then we shall give you a degree. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong in that. That's a perfectly legitimate way of doing things, and it has worked for many years. But the technology and the times are changing. So the technology is changing that allows us to consume education in smaller chunks and all over the place. And students are learning in so many different ways and focus in so many different ways simultaneously. So that's one part of it. And the other part of it is student expectations are different also. And their price points are different in terms of what they want to pay for and consume education at. So that's one notion that we started off with. How do you address that? The other notion we started off with is this notion of what would make our students truly marketable? What would make our students stand out in the market? What do we do that makes them instantly career ready? And so that take that as a second thing. And then really, how do you actually deliver courses to that? So what we devised, and I'm thrilled to say, Corey, that this fall we will be launching this program. It's a new Masters of Science in Business. It truly is one of its kind in the country. So when we say innovative, this is innovation that will stand out nationally. It will stand us in great stead nationally and show that Mizzou can do things. When you say we are the show me state, we're going to show them that we can do things very differently. Okay, and we can be leaders in this space. In the business school, we say lead the way in business education. So we want to lead the way in business. So what is this degree? The thought is the following. The thought is that when you look at business education, there could be, normally we have different departments. We have marketing, we have management, we have school of accountancy, we have finance, and those are the traditional functional areas, right? But the market doesn't say, I want just a management person. What it says is, I want someone who can help us with supply chain management. Or they may say, we want someone who specializes in cybersecurity, or someone who is good in analytics, or someone who's good in forensic accounting. Or, these are different than saying these are the disciplines, right? So what we've done is we've crafted a series of certificates, is what we call them. But certificates that you combine maybe between 4 and 6 different courses that make you reasonably expert in that area. So you might say, I want to be expert in analytics. Well, what does that mean? What that means is if you take these 6 courses intensively, then you can say I have some good understanding of analytics, right? So, but that's not a full degree, that's a certificate. So
Right.
what we said was, if you can have a core business understanding, and if you don't have it, we can we have a separate certificate just for core business. So someone can take that. But that's a prerequisite. But assuming you have someone like you could come in and you have a business degree. So you can say, well, I'm interested in learning about analytics now. So you say, okay, well, take these set of courses in this order or whatever. And you would, so you have to take at least one certificate from the business school. You can take another certificate also from the business school and combine them together to get a Master's of Science in Business. Or, and this is really where the innovation is. We have gone into partnership with every single college on MU. This is really phenomenal. This is very unheard of in higher education, right? Higher education sometimes people look at it and say, you're so siloed, No, we are in collaboration with every single college on campus. And to the credit of every single dean of those colleges, they have made available certificates that students can take. So think about this. We have a world-class journalism school. We have a world-class accounting school, right? But there is no degree in forensic journalism. Well, now you can do that. And you can't do that anywhere else. You can do that here. You can't do that anywhere else, right? Or you're taking some course, you want to be an agricultural specialist. So you can take the certificate in CAFME and cross-combine it with, say, sales. Or you can do healthcare and cross-combine it with finance. Or now you can just think of combinations, right? You can make these up which is phenomenal. And what this says is we are not dictating the education the students will get. The students are choosing or mass customizing their education to what the market wants.
Absolutely.
Which is a completely different way of looking at higher education. And we are in the process of, I think, there are multiple. So this degree will be starting this fall. Will be up and running. So I'm super excited about this. But this is we'll need to get word out to the students. Forums like what you're doing over here is fantastic. It allows us to get the word out. But also we need to educate the market. Right? We need to educate the employers in terms of what does it mean. Because if you can say an MS in business, an MBA, everyone understands what an MBA is. Someone says, I have a Master's of Science in Business. Well, what does that mean? Well, what it means is you have to understand, you have to look at what combinations we're connected in. So not every MS in business student is going to look like every other. It will depend on what combination. I connected law and business. I connected engineering and business. This is, the possibilities are endless. And this, I think, happens at Mizzou, and this is something that we are all going to collectively be proud of. So I'm thrilled about this. So this would be one innovation. And we are looking at different ways in which we can redefine higher education for our students.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is incredibly exciting. I just think about how, like in the entrepreneurial world, the business world, higher education has been getting a lot of flack for being a broken system and for being outdated. And you have employers like Facebook and Google coming out, or in SpaceX saying, I don't care about a degree. I want to know what you know. And this
speaks
to me,
exactly to that.
Exactly. I mean, this allows the higher education to come back into the game and be like, hey, we're now finding ways to give you exactly what you want as an employer, and giving students exactly the type of things they want to learn that is, who they are, not just some box that's close enough.
Exactly. And it's not a matter of just checking off. So let me just give you a version of, and we mentioned that students are also cost sensitive about these things, right? Pricing. And rightfully so. Higher education is expensive. So you need to make sure that you're getting value for money. It's not, it is an investment made by our students. So we need to invest in their success, right? So if you, here's how so not every combination will be valued exactly the same, right? It depends on what combinations. The thinking, or if you look at this program, it's very similar to, if you think in the music industry, this is the difference between having a music CD versus having streaming music, right? Music CD, you're stuck with the 412 songs that you get on that CD, and you pay that fixed price for that, right? You may like only 2 of those songs or 4 of those songs, but you're stuck paying for every single one, right? In streaming, you create your own playlist, and you like every single one of them, right? Now that's a game changer if I've ever seen one, right? And so we need to make ourselves relevant to our students, and we need to make ourselves relevant to the market, both at the same time. And that's really what we're attempting with this.
Yeah. I think that tagline of creating your own playlist, I mean, that perfectly sums up exactly what this is. I mean, it's in this subscription-based, I want just what I want type of world that, my generation and younger have almost known their entire life. I mean, this is tailoring exactly to that, and I think there's so much benefit that's going to come out of the other side.
Now, it's going to be exciting. And think about it. This is Mizzou made, right? This is our stuff. We have done this. So we should all be collectively proud of this.
Absolutely. So my next question, I mean, it ties perfectly into this. Kind of the part of the show, what it was born out of was finding interesting people that are doing what they love that can help me educate other people on how to get to that point in their life. Because I know a lot of people that are stuck doing things that just aren't fulfilling them. And that makes me sad. And when I think about what this is going to do to allow students to almost immediately get into careers that are fulfilling because it's so tailored to them, what are ways that we can make the students aware of, like the resources, whether it's alumni or the different centers or services in the school, to help them make sure they're getting into those fulfilling careers, and I guess knowing what support they have in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of this is a matter of communication. I think this is intuitively an appealing prospect or intuitive, but in many ways we have to educate the market in terms of what you're giving and what you're getting, and our current students will play a big role in that because they will actually experience this, right? But at the same time, one of the beauties of Mizzou that I have experienced in the last 3 years is we have a phenomenal alumni. They are dedicated, they are committed, they are strong supporters of the institution, and they want to do right by the current students. So in many ways, we need to get them into the fold of what we are doing. And I think between these two groups, we will then be able to reach out into the market and get the word out. So we need to, just doing interesting, important, innovative things is not enough if you don't communicate it. This is, I used to use this tagline, but I used to use this kind of a phrase when I first got here. I don't say this anymore because I hope we do a better job of it now. Mizzou to me was in some ways like a best kept secret. Why the heck do we want to be secret? We do such a phenomenal job. Well, let's get out and tell people. And then someone said, you don't want to be bragging. And someone told me a very interesting, it's bragging only if it's not true, right? This is true. We're doing this stuff and it's all good. So all we really need to do is let our students know, let our alums know, let our well-wishers know. And I think we'll get to educate the market. And that's really, we need to do that because unless we tell people what the story is and unless we communicate the innovations that are going on, they won't really have the kind of impact in society that we want. Eventually, this is not, when you make investments, it's not just about, in a short time. Investments are generational investments. So you're making this investment to make sure we leave the situation and society better off than we are. And who's going to make those changes? Not me. It's students like you and our alums who are going to make those changes. So we need to equip them. We need to tell them what we're doing. We need to tell them what they are ready for, and then let them loose. I mean, I think one thing I've learned about our students is you give them a good idea and get the heck out of the way. And they do just fine. They don't need a lot of handholding.
Absolutely. It's this hearing about this right now, it brings that feeling to me of there's no way you can possibly plan for every experience, but it's just funny how things happen in your life. And me being on this mission to do what I'm trying to do and being associated with having gone to Mizzou, I mean, it's just crazy how it all lines up about, I just love this. I love being able to say I'm a Mizzou alumni and we're helping students go out and actually make real impact.
Sure. And helping change lives and have an impact on society. This is what Mizzou is about, right? And this is what certainly the Trulaske College of Business we feel proud to. Taglines are not just taglines. When we say we want to lead the way in business education, we really mean that. It's not just a little slogan out there. It's something that is actively built into the DNA of our priorities and what we want to do. So these innovations are just part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in thinking about these students, that whether they're going through this type of program or maybe not, sure, what would be some of the advice that you would have to kind of give to them as they're taking that first steps into their new careers and they want to hit the ground running? There'll be some failures, of course, but to set them up for success.
Sure. And a great question, Corey, and very appropriate and very much needed. I'm not sure I have huge words of wisdom for anyone because in many ways our students and everyone individually crafts their own history and their own future. So both forward and backwards, everyone is. But just reflecting back on what I think I had the luck and privilege and honor to participate in, what I would suggest to our students is don't be worried about change. Embrace it. Change is where maximal opportunities come about. And change is what is inevitable. It's going to. And so embrace change. Be prepared for change. The other thing I would say is, in addition to being prepared for change, be a constant learner. If no amount of education, no amount of degrees that you get, will replace you being a lifelong learner. So be inquisitive. So when I say be a learner, it's not just about taking more courses. It's being inquisitive about things and then seeing how they fit into a larger. And opportunities come at you in all different ways and forms, and sometimes in ways you never imagined they would. I'll give you one example of interesting opportunity. So I used to do some research with, I'm a data scientist by training, so I do looking at data and so on. And quite by accident, I ended up working with the Maricopa County Department of Public Health in between 2008 and 2011. We were looking at the H1N1 pandemic at that time, similar to COVID, what we are experiencing. It wasn't quite as drastic as what we are experiencing right now, but we were looking at H1N1. And we did some interesting work for them, what have you. But one thing led to another. And if you think about it, first, I have no background in public health, so I had no business of being there. But it was quite by accident that I came across the director of public health in Maricopa County, where Phoenix is part of Maricopa County. And he spoke to me about some research I was doing with a semiconductor company at that time, looking at failure analysis. And it was his brilliance to look at it and say, what you're doing for the semiconductor applies in epidemiology. Can you apply it over here? I looked at him with a face that must have said, "Are you crazy?" But it was his brilliance that allowed me a chance to change course, right? So I started applying that. And I think not being afraid to take on these kind of challenges. And it was a phenomenal experience that I ended up working with public health for a long time. And that led me, opportunities come sometimes by accident. Well, there were two Super Bowls that have been held in Phoenix area while I was there, and public health is part of it. So I got to see from the inside out, being part of a task force related to public health and how Super Bowls are conducted. What are the chances? And so you can't plan for everything. Be prepared for change and be inquisitive about what is coming up, and you will find opportunities where you never thought opportunities existed. So having that mindset is all I would say. I think that's really what we can do in terms of training our students. If we can get them into that mindset, which is what the whole idea of being flexible and so on is. If you can get people into that mindset, then you just let them loose, and they will do great work.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Being open-minded might have been the single greatest thing that came out of my college experience. So you guys did a good job. And it allows me to just keep taking opportunity after opportunity. And even if they don't pan out, you learn. Like there is no failure to me.
Well, it's not, Michael Jordan said that, right? It's not like every shot he made went in, but by golly, you didn't stop taking shots. And that's really what it is. You got to keep doing it. Yeah.
Exactly. Kind of my last question here before, kind of wrapping up would be, do you have any words, maybe step out of me as interviewer shoes, you step out of dean of the business school shoes, and just to the people and the students that just graduated and the people of the world right now, do you have any words that you want to say kind of during all this craziness?
Sure. And thank you for asking that, because these are difficult times. These are tough times. These are, and I'm saying words that people have repeated 100 times. These are unusual times, uncertain times. All that is true. And what we are going through is, certainly nothing that I've seen in my 32-year career as an academic that you would have ever imagined this confluence of these things happening at the same time. So it's almost like a trifecta of forces that are impacting society in ways that we had never imagined. First, you had a pandemic going on, which has had this enormous impact on the economy. Mm-hmm. Right? So if you think about these in waves, you had this first wave that came at us in the form of a pandemic. And we went into a lockdown, and we did different ways in which to contain this. And what that has had is a tremendous impact, economic impact, tremendous impact on the economy. It's really tough when you look out there. We had one of the strongest economies, and now we are looking at this tremendous job, folks out of a job kind of situation. It's tough. It's really tough, and those have a lot of difficulties associated. And it's difficult, especially if you're a student just graduating, like yourself. When you look at how do you cope with something like that? And then on top of that, our country is now dealing with racial questions, which are legitimate questions, but these are questions that have deep impact, right? And again. History is difficult to change, but history is something we can certainly learn from and make ourselves better from. Mm-hmm. So I think if you look at these three waves, and different people think of it differently, I think of us as like almost being on a beach, and the shape of the beach is changing with these waves coming in one after the other. And in some ways, we have to be prepared to deal with these waves in different ways. Key solution always is education. Key solution is always being open. Key solution is making sure we have the right intent. If we have those, then collectively we'll do the right thing. And that's what we need to do. So what I would say to our students, to say to everyone is, I've been in this country for 38 years. I'm proud to be an American, okay? And I would say this country has given me a lot. And what I've learned over here is we can face just about anything when we put our minds to it. And yes, this is sort of a trifecta of forces coming at us. But this too shall pass, right? This too shall pass, and we'll come out the other side. So we can't overly dwell on just this. We have to look at what we will become, or what do we want to become on the other side of this equation, and keep one eye on that and be forward looking. And I think we'll come out of this. We'll come out of it. There'll be tough days. There'll be tough times, which we are all facing right now. But that's where what we spoke about earlier. It's all about having the flexibility to change, having the flexibility and understanding when you do things differently. And I think that's really what. So again, no great words of wisdom here, Corey, but this is more from the heart. I think this is really these are difficult times, and there's no way around. There's no way around saying you can't sugarcoat this. These are really tough times. But we'll come through it. We'll come through it. I have every confidence.
I absolutely agree. And I think sometimes maybe the wisest words are the ones that come from the heart. So appreciate you for saying that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. This is it's fabulous. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This has been a lot of fun. Before I ask you my last question, kind of the one I do at the end of every show, where can people keep up with you personally, or maybe what's going on with the business schools, online stuff?
Sure. One thing I always tell everybody in my college and my colleagues, always have an open door policy. Always willing to speak to anyone who wants to have a conversation. Simple thing is, if you want to speak with me, have a conversation, just call the office. We'll be happy to set up time and have this conversation. Alternately, anyone is, certainly our students, staff, faculty, any of my colleagues, anyone out there who are well-wishers of Mizzou and otherwise, if you want to contact me, just send me an email, and I'll be happy to respond. I'll give you my email address. It's Vinze. It's VINZEA @missouri.edu. You're welcome to shoot me an email. A quick way to know what's going on in the business school and all the innovations we are doing, I would encourage people to visit our website, the Trulaske College of Business website. It'll not only list what we are doing, it also gives you a sense of where we are going. So check that out, including the program that we just spoke about. Just so you know, keeping up with this innovation kind of things, we are also spawning a new, I don't want to call it webinar, but it's really a conversation session. It'll start from this Monday. It's called Business Insider Series. So it'll feature our faculty are doing phenomenal research work, and they're doing, and that's relevant to academic research and relevant to practice. So this first go around, we will be tackling the issue of global supply chains and how they are impacted at COVID. And we have one of our faculty members, Anthony Ross, leading up that conversation. But that and more. So I think our website has things that are going on, and as you know, with all other social media, we are a business school, so we're in tune with the times. So we certainly have a presence on various social media presence. So you're welcome to reach out in any which way. But we'll be thrilled to hear from anyone. Always open to a conversation. Always looking for good ideas. Always looking to find out how we could do things differently and stand out both as a college and as an institution.
Absolutely. So this is kind of the last one I do. I try to put people in the frame of mind of, let's say, a decade from now, someone has found my show or found it through some other channel, and they've come back to listen to this interview. What is something that you would want them to do for you at that point in time, whether it's for you personally or if it's a charge for the world itself? What is something you hope people coming back to listen will go out and do?
That's an interesting question. I've never had a question like that. But I think if someone was from the future was coming back and listening to your show, I think one of the things they should take away is to be at a point where they are continuing to see Mizzou as a leading source of light academically, educationally, and so on. and be saying, heck, some of the things that they did 10 years back made a difference. Um, I also want them to be saying that made a difference at that time. We have taken that and done 10 more or 15 more things since then. And by golly, we are so much different than what uh, we were 10 years ago. Things are changing way too quickly for us to be standing still. Uh, the rate of change, people used to say these are generational changes. Then they said they're decade-long changes. Now they almost happen, day by day almost, if you see it. So the speed at which you see changes happening are tremendous. I want them to feel that we were part of a conversation that was describing the business school, the Trulaske College of Business, and Mizzou in a way that positioned it to deal with an uncertain future and to navigate the waters in a meaningful way. So,
Absolutely.
If we can do that, we'll all be in good shape.
Yes, absolutely. Still charging people to go out and impact the world. I absolutely love it. Dean Vinze, this has been a tremendous pleasure for me. Thank you so much for doing this and for sharing what I'll call your wisdom with everyone out there listening.
Well, I so appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity. And I love it when one of our students goes out and changes the world like you are. So keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate that. And for everyone out there listening, I'm not sure anything really needs to be said about how impactful this interview was. Go back and re-listen to it and listen to some of the things that Dean talked about with how we're going to help students really understand more how to build their dream career, if you will, and listen to his charge about how we need to act in these challenging times. And just remember that everything is going to be coming out in a brighter future soon enough. Thank you all.